Whether you are into slashers or psychological thrillers, here are top 25 best horror movies available on Netflix. Netflix's horror movies library is one of its deepest catalogs. Just skip the popcorn so you don't have to vacuum it up after too many jump scares. Let's see this horror movies list right now. First of all, we want to recommend a horror movie called Us. Jordan Peele's terrifying follow-up to Get Out is heavy with dread, jump scares, and existential fears, with virtuosic performances from Lupita Nyong'o and Winston Duke, a reasonably well-off and regular couple taking a vacation with their children, and their horrifying doppelgangers, who appear in the driveways of their rental home to take them hostage for a truly torturous night.
Look behind!
Jamie!
Second movie in our selection will be half remake, half sequel of the 1996 original movie called Scream, which sprouted into one of the most iconic horror franchises of the 90s, avoids many of the worst pitfalls that horror remakes so often fall into. With an amazing performance from Jenna Ortega as Tara Carpenter, it references the source material while smartly updating and expanding the story for a modern audience.
Talk to me.
Talk to Me. A24 is prepping their highly anticipated follow-up with the Philippou brothers' Bring Her Back. See where the buzz started with the company's highest-grossing horror film to date. The story of a group of teenagers who find a severed, embalmed hand and use it to contact the other side. Apostle is for the goreheads and the period piece fans. Set in 1905, it's about a man who goes undercover, secretly joining a cult that has kidnapped his sister in order to save her. The vision is specific and strong, even if it doesn't always totally make sense, and the bodily fluids are plentiful.
When's the remodel done?
Never.
Thanksgiving. Good old-fashioned slasher film made expressly for horror buffs. It's the feature-length manifestation of a fake trailer the director, Eli Roth, made for 2007's Grindhouse. It's fairly predictable and lacking in development of the character and plot varieties, but that's all part of the fun. One of the scariest movies, Smile. This grim, unsettling trauma metaphor follows Dr. Rose Cotter, a therapist whose patient dies by suicide in front of her, claiming to be seeing a mysterious, smiling entity. Soon, Rose is being haunted by the same vision, and alongside her ex, a cop named Joel, she starts making connections to other deaths in which people who witnessed a suicide are haunted by this same mysterious figure. It's well-directed, visually impressive, and has some excellent jump scares. Netflix original movie The Platform. Movie action takes place in a prison where inmates are assigned two to a floor. Every day, a platform descends through a hole in the middle of a building. At the top, it's covered in food, theoretically enough to feed everyone, but it never works out that way because those at the top take more than their fair share. With several clever twists and a grisly conclusion, it's worth a watch. Don't Listen. A couple who makes a living flipping houses moves into a new one with their son, Eric, and some very creepy things start happening. The performances are strong even when the script isn't always, but it's a deeply immersive addition to the genre that keeps the tension going throughout. The universe of The Conjuring got its first spin-off in this unpacking of the tale of Annabelle, a doll being held in the haunted objects chamber of Ed and Lorraine Warren in those films. The origin story of the haunted doll stars Annabelle Wallis, Ward Horton, and Alfre Woodard. Creep. An underappreciated but truly excellent found-footage-style portrayal of how our fear of social discomfort can put us in dangerous situations. Mark Duplass stars as Joseph, a certified weirdo whose penchant for making people uncomfortable is apparent almost the moment he greets Aaron, who has come to film him for the day. Joseph tells Aaron that he has terminal brain cancer and wants to create a video diary for his unborn son. He slowly and methodically pushes at Aaron's boundaries until you find yourself screaming at him to leave. Malevolent is far from being one of the best horror movies on Netflix, thanks to an extremely jarring tone shift halfway through the movie. It is, however, one of the strongest horror performances you'll find on the streamer. It stars a pre-Midsummer Florence Pugh who really commits to her role as Angela, a reluctant scammer messing with the supernatural in ways she very much shouldn't. Disappear completely. With an obnoxious, morally bankrupt protagonist, this one is pretty satisfying. It centers on a photographer who will do absolutely anything to get the shot, and who, after a particularly severe affront to human decency, is cursed and begins to slowly lose his senses. Because of how well the film is written, acted, and directed, watching it is disturbingly close to experiencing such a loss yourself. Cam. This movie can claim one attribute that few other horror movies can: a genuinely original concept. Alice is a cam girl who's quickly rising in the ranks on her camming site under the pseudonym Lola. Until one morning, she wakes up to find someone who looks and sounds exactly like her, but isn't her, streaming from her account. Soon, she can't even log in. There are plenty of questions left unanswered, but suspend your disbelief to appreciate its larger themes around online personas and how they impact us as individuals and as a society. Barbarian. Georgina Marshall plays a woman who discovers that her Airbnb has been double-booked when she arrives and finds someone already staying there, the excellent Bill Skarsgård. Despite her instincts, she decides to stay too, and then things go very sideways, but not in the way you expect them to. Under the Shadow. This Iranian horror film, set in the 80s against the Iran-Iraq War, got tons of critical acclaim and accomplishes something the horror genre can do very well: use the supernatural as a vehicle for social commentary. Nargis Rashidi stars in Under the Shadow as a young woman attempting to deal with oppression both outside and inside her home. This story of His House centers on a young refugee couple who have arrived in the UK from South Sudan. They're placed in a government-sponsored rental home in a state of disrepair that is horrifying enough on its own, as are the various manifestations of racism, classism, and xenophobia they face in their new home. They are both haunted by the terrors they faced on their journey from Sudan, particularly the loss of their daughter, and soon after settling in, the haunting of their home begins. Things heard and seen. Catherine and George Clare, a couple who relocate from 1980s Manhattan to a small town in upstate New York after George lands a teaching gig at a liberal arts college. They move into a creepy farmhouse. The townspeople are super weird to them. Freaky supernatural occurrences abound. What's more interesting about the film is actually its depiction of a marriage falling apart, which eventually is tied into the spirits that are being heard and seen. Gerald's Game. Jessie and her husband Gerald are spending a weekend at an isolated cabin to reconnect. He handcuffs her to the bed, but dies of a heart attack soon after, collapsing on top of her and leaving her trapped and entirely alone. Gugino's gripping performance makes this the furthest thing from a slog, and even the famously terrible ending of the novel is handled with as much grace as humanly possible. Australian movie Run Rabbit Run walks the line between a ghost story and one of possession, with Snook as an exhausted and traumatized mother whose daughter starts to claim she's actually her mother's long-disappeared sister. The nightmarish tale only escalates from there. Cargo is another, slightly different take on the zombie movie genre. Martin Freeman is stranded with his baby in rural Australia after being infected during a zombie-creating pandemic. Before he succumbs, he has to find a way to keep her safe. The first in Netflix's Fear Street trilogy, based on the book series by Robert Lawrence Stein, these three films told the story of a curse that had descended on a small town and unfolded across three films set in different eras: 1994, 1978, and 1666. Fans argued over which one was the best, but it's best to appreciate these now as one piece of sharply written horror entertainment. Ouija, Origin of Evil. Sequels to mediocre horror films aren't traditionally any good. Every rule has an exception. The director of Gerald's Game helmed this fantastic prequel about a couple who have a phony seance business. Their lives are turned upside down when they bring a Ouija board into their act, unknowingly unleashing a spirit that possesses their daughter. Netflix original horror movie, The Babysitter. This satire takes all the generic elements of a Home Alone horror movie and exaggerates them for comedic effect, with varying degrees of success. The movie is grounded in its star performance from Samara Weaving, who plays the titular babysitter with gusto. Swedish horror comedy slasher called The Conference follows a corporate retreat full of shady and deeply foolish business people who are planning to open a shopping mall on land stolen from farmers. Instead of learning about positive thinking, they get a bloody lesson on karma. And the last movie in our selection, Netflix's horror movie called The Deliverance. The movie is inspired by the case of LaToya Ammons, who moved with her family into a Gary, Indiana rental home in 2011. Soon, she began noticing strange occurrences and disturbing behavior from her children. Eventually, a priest conducted an exorcism, and the house was demolished. Thank you for watching our selection. Write in the comments, which horror movie did you like the most? In order not to miss the appearance of new videos, subscribe to our channel and recommend this video to your friends.